So welcome back to part 3 of my delve deeper episodes into Nitro Stouts. Now we're going to try Kilkenny's Nitro Cream Ale. If you notice, I'm just leaving the widget to do its thing a couple of seconds longer than I had been for the other beers. And as you can see, the result of that is that I'm getting a much creamier nitro sort of pour, and I wonder if I should have just taken a little bit more time to let the widget do its thing with the other nitro beers. It's a proper cascade going on here, so this is really looking good. 4.3% ABV, contains the widgets, and it says to give it a smoother taste and creamier head. Widget may rattle in can, which is pretty obvious, I would imagine. A Kilkenny Irish Cream Ale has a deep red hue, rich creamy head, and distinctive smooth and flavourful taste. It originates from Ireland's oldest brewery, based in the 12th century Franciscan Abbey in Kilkenny. Today, Kilkenny Irish Cream Ale is brewed under the expertise of Guinness & Co. at St James's Gate, Dublin, Ireland, and is enjoyed by the discerning beer drinkers all over the world. Chill for 3 hours and always pour the entire contents into the glass immediately after opening. Well, that's interesting because I listened to the previous master brewer of Guinness, and he said, let the ring pull open the beer and then give it a second or two to let that widget expel all of the nitrogen gas into the rest of the beer and then pour it. Whereas the Kilkenny is saying open the beer and pour immediately. So there is a little bit of discrepancy on the best way to pour it. But yeah, Kilkenny draft. Let's give it a go and see how it tastes. Sláinte. Well, it's cold and refreshing. Outside we're having a really unseasonably warm day. It's 15 degrees, said to go up even a bit higher, which is amazing. And then, you know, if you pull out a can of nitro beer from the fridge, which is nice and cold and refreshing, and you've got that nice creaminess, there's an enjoyment to it that sort of supersedes the flavour, the aroma, and all of that other fluff, and it just becomes something that is a refreshing drink to have on a warm day. It's nice and cold. This is not really a flavorful beer, but being not flavorful, it allows you to drink more of it, which is kind of counterintuitive. But without that huge amount of bombarding of you know, really enjoyable, rich, aromatic malts and hops and all those different kinds of contributions you get from yeast and the water profile itself, you know, without all that getting in the way, you can just drink the pint for what it is. And that is why a lot of these pints of Nitro Stout and Nitro Cream Ale and just plain light lagers and all of these, you know, very innocuous tasting beers, that's why they do so well, because they just serve the purpose of liquid refreshment. Let's just give it another go and see what it does actually taste like. On the nose is so light. It's kind of like again, it's that cereal, shredded wheat. It tastes almost like a pub. It tastes like the floor of a bar. It really does. Sort of, you know, walking downstairs into the cellar room of a pub. If you've done that, these are the kinds of flavors you get, you know, not, you know, a little bit stale beer. I mean, it's just that it's flavorless and you're left with that beery sort of taste or aromas anyway. Nothing really going on there, but I mean, not taken away from the beer. There's like a light, biscuity, very gentle breadiness, but more heading in the direction again of cereal. It's kind of like a weakness to it that just doesn't have much flavour impact. Now, having said that, it is warm outside and I'm enjoying the pint for what it is. It's just a refreshing pint of beer, nice and cold. The cream on top is sticking around. It's just nice. It just doesn't have much flavour to it. But I guess that's something that, you know, craft beer, craft brewers that take on red ales and just pales and any of these kinds of lighter style nitro beers, you know, that's up to them to try and change all that. There's an opportunity there, and I think there really is an opportunity, because I can imagine tasting a bit of caramel, a bit of toffee to this, and I'd love it. Maybe a bit of pale chocolate malt in there as well, and maybe just fire in extra hops and maybe it'll come out really nice. I don't know. Anyway, that's my view on this brew. And now we're going to get on to Hope's Nitro Stout, which will be a totally different experience again. I'm just going to drink the rest of this. Okay, so that's Hope Limited Edition Nitro Stout, brewed for the time of year. It's 4.8%. It gives a bit of detail on the back of this. As you'd imagine with craft brewery beers, there's a little bit more detail on the back. Brewed and canned in Dublin at Hope Beer, established 2016, so very much of the new brewery section of these nitro beers. 65 EBC in colour, so nearly black. Yeah, pretty much black. 4.8%. Yeah, bitterness is 44 IBUs. Now, this is nitrogenated, but I should, in theory, because it's not... I don't know, you know, the exact proportions of nitro carbonation to carbon dioxide carbonation, but I'm assuming it's 75-25, again, the same as the others. Or maybe it's not. Maybe I've got it totally wrong. Maybe it's completely nitro. Anyway, this doesn't have a widget in it. That's why you have to do the hard pour. With these hard pour ones, they literally tell you to invert the can or the bottle upside down straight into the glass, get that nitro cascade going and form that nice creamy thick head on the top. And it does look nice. Doesn't look quite as stable as the nitro beers with the widget in, but that is absolutely to be expected. There's no liquid nitrogen being placed in here before the can lid's been seamed on top. But for microbreweries and for smaller craft breweries, that technology, that, you know, to add that into their brewery is just not possible for a lot of places anyway. It's quite expensive. Creamy, malty, smooth, nitro in a can without the widget. When poured correctly, this stout will give a beautifully creamy head as well as the great stout flavours you are used to from Hope Beer. The flavour is a balance between hot bitterness and roasted malts. So there's going to be hot bitterness in this. Don't really get much of that in any of the older traditional nitro stouts. The Guinness, the Murphy's, the Beamish. More specifically, notes of coffee and bitter chocolate, a creamy texture provided by a small amount of oats from this, and it makes a special satisfying beer. Okay, that's it. Let's give it a go. Cheers, sláinte. I've got my nice Hope glass, Willie Becker glass. Let's see. I obviously didn't clean the bottom of this very well, but you can get rid of those bubbles just by smashing it down a little bit. there is still bubbles all over the bottom. Obviously, it's, you know, the harder it is to get down the bottom of the glass, harder it is to clean it away. And you see that Nitro Stout picks all up. Look at that nice creamy tan head. A lot darker head than all of the traditional ones. Also, that's going to have a lot to do with the lack of widget. Let's see. On the nose, straight away, totally different ball game to the widget cans. Okay, so here I've got aromas that are lifting up away from the beer. So there's definitely some scope here of difference, like noticeable difference. Chocolate, coffee, roast, bit of sweetness going on in there. Way more enticing than any of the other canned nitro ones with the widgets in on the nose, but already, like, I can see that head is dropping. Kind of fruitiness going on in there as well. That must be the hops. Almost gives off a similar kind of fruitiness to black IPA. Anyway, let's give it a go. Cheers, Lancia. Right, so it's 4.8%. The others are in and around that ballpark, you know, 4.0, 4.2, 4.3, that kind of thing. 4.8 is not that much of a stretch, but it is 0.5% more. But the flavour off of this is just, there's a lot more flavour contribution from the malts. So there's a bitterness, there's a fruitiness going on in there that you don't get with all of the older style nitro cans with the widgets. A nice, there's bitterness from the hops and there's bitterness from the malt. Two different bitterness going on in there. You can taste the malt, you can taste the dark chocolatey. There's kind of like an almost there's a bit of viscosity to it. I can taste the grain in this more than I can in the nitro stouts, and that's interesting. I guess that's what carbonation does for it, CO2 carbonation. A really, really nice stout, I have to say. It sort of straddles a couple of styles, because the black IPA, you know, I can detect in this, and maybe it's because I've been having these nitro stouts, the older ones, maybe it's because they're so dulled down and really, really easy drinking, a bit more tangy, a bit more Guinnessy, that kind of way. Maybe now I've jumped onto this, I can really, really see, I can taste the difference between the acidity from the malt and the roastiness from the malt and the bitterness from the malt, and I can also get the fruitiness from it as well, and I can also get a different element, which is the hops going on, which give this fruitiness, this bitterness, and this kind of whole different flavour composition added in on top, which I didn't get from any of the old Nitro Stout cans on draft. But look at that head, it's dying. It's trying, but it's dying. And of course, if you're not going to drink this fast, you're going to end up with no head and very little carbonation to back it up. So that's the trade-off, I think, here. With the cans with the widgets in, you're getting a lot more smooth, velvety, silky mouthfeel, and a lot of drinkability, a lot of sessionability to it. With this one here, there's a whole bunch of flavour going on. Even though it's kind of tame on the craft beer end, it's still giving me a whole mountain of flavour, and I'm noticing it so much more because I've just had those other ones. Now it is coming across a little bit flat. I want to see if I can spin this up a bit. And there is not much left. So the trade-off with the initial perception for me of the trade-off with a nitro pour can is probably better in 330 mils because you're going to drink it quicker. open another one, whereas this 441 sort of demands that you drink it quite quick, because you could see at the beginning of this video I had about this much head. Now I'm struggling to have any head, but I'm also missing any carbonation at all. I mean, there's a bit in there, but it's very, very low. The beer itself is carbonated, but it's kind of low, and I'm noticing the hops in this so much more. It really is straddling what a black IPA is all about, which is, and I don't think it tells you what hops are in this, does it? Which is a bit of a shame. And interestingly enough, Hope is one of those breweries that puts all of their ingredients on their core range cans or bottles, but not on these special ones. I feel like the flavour in this is much more apparent, and I kind of knew it was going to be that way, but the flavour contribution between this nitro pour and a widget can pour, you know, it's incomparable. These are like two very different things. You'd almost go as far as to say, like, you know, Americans slam hops in and flavour in their beers. This feels, it's not American, of course, but it feels more Americanized, where they've amped up everything. But in actual fact, what happens with the cans with the widgets in is everything is dialed back. So then you go on to something like this, which would be perfectly normal any other day, and you get so much sensory perception from the aromas and the flavors. It's like, wow. But what lets this kind of a beer down is that lack of head. This would not be happening if there was a widget in the can. Now, I don't know, I mean, I guess it's the domain of microbreweries to really try absolutely everything and see what does and doesn't work. The flavor in this really is lovely. Chocolate, roasty, coffee. You know, you don't need much more. I mean, that's the mandate for this kind of a thing anyway, and it fills it. It's lovely, really lovely. The only thing I would say is, probably, given the fact there's not much head on it, it's kind of weird drinking it now, and that's only been open like 5 or 10 minutes, so that's the only thing. Other than that, I can't fault this beer. Really nice. It is cream. It was creamy. Now it isn't. It says creamy, malty, smooth on the back. So it was creamy, but if you don't drink it quick, it isn't creamy. Malty, huge amount. Smooth. Smooth, I guess, because it's not got a prickly sense of carbonation in it. It's sort of thinner and less... yeah, maybe a bit smoother, but not in the right way, really. Yeah, but still a really nice beer. Okay, I think I'm going to crack on with the next one now, because I'm on a bit of a roll with these. How about that glass, by the way, from Hope Brewery? Willie Becker glass, fantastic. Such a cool brewery. If you haven't had their beers, go get some. Okay, so we've moved to Lefthand Brewing in Longmont, Colorado, with their Nitro Stouts. And much the same as the O'Hara Stout here in Ireland, Lefthand Brewing have mastered the art of the widget in the can. I do actually have a widget here from the O'Hara's can, which is basically, it does the same job as the little ping pong ball, but it's fixed to the bottom of the can in a 440ml can. That's what's in O'Hara's, and that's what's in this milk stout here from Lefthand Brewing. The milk stout, which obviously contains lactose in it, it seems to have a more stable head. Certainly in the Nitro 355ml bottle, which incidentally doesn't have a widget in at all, just has nitrogenated beer straight from the tanks, which is similar, of course, to the one I've just had from Hope. But look at the head on that. It's not moving anywhere. It's really, really stable. It's wobbling. But the 355ml bottle is probably a better size than the 440ml can that Hope have done, just because you're probably going to drink it quicker. It is also a higher ABV. So where the Nitro from Hope was 4.8%, the more stable 6% here, which is a good deal more, has probably made the nitrogen, made the beer thicker, and therefore the nitrogen is just holding in it that bit better. I've poured these at the same time specifically to see what the difference in the head is and how it looks. Well, the cascade of them is absolutely fantastic in both of them. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. The look of this beer, also 440ml. Now, in America, they have 16-ounce fluid shaker glasses. So 16 fluid ounce shaker glasses, so their straight edge glass would probably fit that straight to the top. I just put it in the Guinness one just because I've done all the rest in the Guinness one, and I've only gone the 355ml in this one because it just seems like a better size glass for it. Now, I'm just going to give them a quick spin around. They're going to be the same beer, but this one I'm expecting to be much duller in flavour. Now, the head is exactly the same colour, although this one is less stable. Let me just smell them. A little bit cereal, quite a bit malt, quite a bit strong malt going on. A little bit milk chocolate. Obviously there's milk in there, so that's where that's coming from. Mochaccino kind of a aroma going on there. Very nice, I have to say. Very, very nice. This one, don't normally spin a tulip glass, but a bit of like milk chocolate going on as well. But this one is stronger on the nose for sure. Bit sweet. But this one, like, it's night and day. You could do this in a blind taste test, and I guarantee 100 times out of 100, you would say this one has more aroma on the nose, and that's whether you taste beer or you don't. Like, you can just, it's easy. This one is more muted. It's almost like smelling nothing, but you have to really try to get something from it, whereas this one, it's just right on the nose. So that's an interesting, I'm glad I poured them at the same time just to see what the effect is. So nitrogenated beer from a fermenter that doesn't have a widget in it is going to give you a more flavorful experience. There is obviously going to be some carbon dioxide in there, I presume, maybe I'm wrong, but I presume there is. In this one, there's carbon dioxide for sure because it's widget technology. So it's 75% nitrogen and 25% carbon dioxide. But look, I mean, that head just hasn't moved at the millimeter. In fairness, neither has this one. Let's go with the dull one a little bit first. You really do have to clean these glasses well. Anyway, cheers, Sláinte. Well, very much unlike the Beamish, the Murphys, the O'Haras, and the Guinness from Ireland, this American milk stout, you know, the very, very first thing you get is a huge amount of sweetness to it. And perhaps that's amplified because I've just had all of the other cans from Ireland. But it really does present itself as a milk stout. So sweetness is what this is all about. Very, very nice, I have to say. Smooth, easy drinking. less about the roasty character, far much more about the lactose milky sweetness, but in a very nice, mellow, gentle way, with that supporting dark malt coming in as well. But you don't say, oh, that gives me chocolate, that gives me coffee, that gives me this. You just say there's a nice dark malt coming through in the background as well. It's kind of like a culmination of different flavors. And then when you get past the milkiness and the sweetness, some of that malt comes through. So I feel like the more I drink this, the more I'm going to get a perception of like the dark, you know, not bitter. It's really not bitter at all. Like I want to say, like you immediately think, you know, when you have a Nitro Stout, you're going to get like a twang that's not too far short of mineral, earthy, kind of like a yogurty almost, not lactic, but a twang of fruitiness going on in there, which is that combination of the, you know, what the widget does for the creaminess of it versus the flatness of the rest of the beer versus the bitterness of the dark malts going in. But what I don't get on this is that twang at all. There is none of that. What there is just sweetness. Sweetness filled in with a bit of malt character in the background. Now it's a different style of beer, you know, and that's just fair enough, but leaving a fantastic trail of rings, absolutely beautiful. Nothing else to say about it. It's just a nice milk stout on nitro. Very, very low in carbonation, very low indeed. There's not even a perception of, you know, some kind of effervescence at all. It's just milky cream. You'd almost say it's like a flat beer, but the mouthfeel just tricks your mind into thinking, okay, yeah, that's proper beer. But when you actually think about it, it's not far short of being flat. Like, in fact, the more I think about it, it kind of tastes flat. Let me just give that another go. Yeah, I mean, I like it, but it kind of tastes flat. And I'm also acutely aware that I've just drank, you know, the best part of the whole can in, you know, under like kind of a minute really. So that's probably not a clever idea because we've got them open, so we have to try them. That's my excuse anyway. It does show you a picture here of you literally turning the bottle upside down and pouring it in, so it gives you instructions as to what to do. 5 to 7 degrees Celsius. Remember, any normal stout you would be thinking, you know, we need between 8 and 12, maybe even 14 degrees, like warm it up, like take it out the fridge. With Nitro Stout, you do the absolute opposite. Otherwise, we'd have a whole bunch of bubbles here, a whole bunch of beer, you know, very uneven head, too much head. So this one has been in the fridge for that long. And what else does it say? Brewed on the banks of the mighty St. Vrain. Yeah, I mean, this is America's, I mean, they're self-proclaimed, they're America's stout. They are the ones that went ahead and worked out how to do nitrogenation in their beers. They're the ones that went ahead and did a widget in their can. I don't know who else is doing it over in America, but Lefthand Brewing Company, it is their thing. So their beers are nitro. Let's give this one a go. Look how well that has stayed though, in comparison to the nitro from Hope Brewery in Dublin. You know, the head on this one hasn't moved a centimetre. I mean, it has literally stayed. It's got to be because of the ABV, and it's got to be because of the addition of lactose. Cheers, Sláinte. Well, this beer tastes better than that beer. And I'll tell you why. 1, there's carbonation going on in here. 2, I can taste the malt. 3, I get that nice creamy mouthfeel. So I think the guys have nailed this one. And I was expecting to feel that this one was going to be more enjoyable. But in actual fact, what's happened is, I mean, completely enjoyable. I'm not like pitting them against each other. They're just different packaged products. But, you know, if this head's going to stick around, then that's absolutely exactly what I wanted. Look, in fact, if I turn it on its side, you can see the nitrogen just coming out of solution there. So there, I mean, there is obviously carbonation in it as well. Whereas if I do that with this one, a little bit the same in fairness. Like, yeah, can't knock it. Get a lot more chocolate, a lot more, you know, chocolate, cocoa, kind of a fruitiness going on in there as well. Kind of like, yeah, malty, a bit shredded wheaty as well. You know, a bit of like a slack kind of malt flavour, which, you know, I tend to think of as cereal. But also none of that twang that you get from an Irish stout on Nitro. The twang is that fruity, almost yogurt-like element to it. Very, very enjoyable. This one for me is the one, and it was actually quite a good bit cheaper than the can, because the can's got the widget in, and they've both kept their head. And I've been chatting away for far too long, but what do I think about these beers in relation to Irish Nitro Stouts? Well, firstly, I would far prefer to have the Irish ones, because the lactose in this makes the beer sweet. So if I'm going to have this, I'm probably only going to have one. If you put a can of Guinness next to it, I could have 2, 3 or 4 of those, where I'm probably going to have one of these and move on to something else. Maybe 2, maybe 3, I don't know. But really and truly, I probably want to move on to something that's just different, because it's too sweet. It's sweetness on sweetness on sweetness. So for me, that would kind of like, I mean, 2 bottles of this, fine, but 2 cans of this, I'm not sure, because that one doesn't even have the roasty sort of malt going on too much. Whereas the smoothness of a can of Guinness or a can of O'Hara's, which has really got lots of malt going on in there as well, is far more appealing to me than the sweetness of this milk stout. But that's just a preference thing, and if you like sweet beers, then you're probably going to love this as well. But that is 8 beers that I've tried now, all nitrogenated beers, and all of it, when you think about it, all of it can be traced back to Guinness in 1951, when they employed that mathematician, Michael Ash, to come in, and then by 1959, they were ready to go, ready to take on all of those other, you know, the kegs, the kegged beer with the artificial forced carbonation in it. They were ready to bring their product to market. And Guinness are still around today, and they've got a great marketing system going on. So their product is what it is. It's 4.2%. It's draft Guinness in a can with a widget. They were the first people to do it, and the rest of the world followed suit. And but this beer is absolutely, by far and away, and a country mile so, way more flavourful and tasty than Guinness. I got nothing against Guinness. I'll drink pints of Guinness, no problem. But this beer here has loads more flavour to it. Only downside is at 440ml, and it should be 500ml. Why should it be 500ml? No reason. It can go in this glass. But our brains are tuned into that idea of the pint of Guinness. Let's have a pint of O'Hara's, and if it only goes up to here, that's kind of like weird, awkward. But that's literally the only thing I can say about it, that that I wasn't completely and utterly impressed with. So this is the beer for me of all the beers, even the Kilkenny red cream ale. You know, the Hope limited edition, which was lovely, but the head didn't last very long on it. Of all the beers, the Beamish, the Murphy's, you know, the Guinness, all of them, this is the one. This is definitely the one. But I hear on the grapevine there's going to be another contender even to this one coming along in the not too distant future. I'll say nothing about that because I'm not sure if I can or not, but I am I've fallen back in love with Nitro Stout, and I kind of would like to go and try all of these beers in pubs on their draft system, because I feel like I've learned a lot along the way about these beers and what they bring to consumers, and to consumers in pubs and at home, and all of their benefits and the upsides, the downsides, you know, and just learning about you know, what nitrogen does for a beer. So I've had a bit of a blast trying these beers. I won't lie, I'm a little bit tiddly right now as well because I drank them so fast. Well, I think in reverse, I've probably learnt that you can make a nitrogenated beer very nice as long as you add lactose to it, even without the widget. But I don't really like milk stout as a style personally, per se. What else have I learned? I've learned that the craft beer industry in Ireland, which is so good at the minute, so full of like talent, quality beers and quality breweries, and it's all down to the people in these breweries. And then also on top of that, I've learned that I don't particularly like a nitro cream ale, but I probably have one. You know, Kilkenny still made it St James's Gate. It was fine, but it doesn't have that roasty bit, which I kind of like, that bite, that bitterness, you know, that you don't get from the carbonation, but you do get from the dark malt used in the beer. So if you're doing it in a cream, if you're doing it like a bitter or a red ale, you kind of lose out on that bite, that bitterness. So I've learned that. I've learned exactly what happens with these beers in terms of how they're nitrogenated, which is pretty damn scary. With liquid nitrogen at minus 195 degrees Celsius it's stored at. That it, you know, a droplet's put in there, it seemed it vaporizes, and as it vaporizes turns to gas, expands, that gas expands and really pressurizes the can. So I've learnt that Guinness has a nice twang, Beamish has a nice twang, Murphy's has a nice roasty bite to it, slightly less head in it. All of these beers bring something different to the table, and they're all great in their own right. You just have to pick the one that you like the best, which is this one, by the way. And I guess I'll wait to see this new nitro beer when it comes out. Let's see what happens in the future. That's the end. Yeah, that's the end. Cheers, sláinte, and it's on to the next one.